yes, nerdly.co.uk. We are still here at the Romford Film Festival, Day 3, Romford HORRHIFFIC Film Festival, and we have just shown. I'm going to ask one of you guys to pronounce this because I still can't pronounce the name of this movie.
Pareidolia. Oh shit! Sorry, I just said it. Well, we can take it again. Go on.
I was going to take
on 3.
3,
1, 2, 3.
Pareidolia.
See, I've been calling it Pareidolia.
I like that.
Well,
We're renaming it
Yeah.
Pareidolia.
Yeah.
I like that.
So go down the couches and tell us who you are and what you did on this project.
My name is Aaron Truss, and I'm the director-editor of Pareidolia.
I'm Graham Cole, and I had the privilege of bringing to life Father John Cavanagh.
And I'm Stuart Marriss. I'm casting director and producer of Pareidolia.
Pareidolia.
Pareidolia. I mean, get it.
You put it on the table just before the jug of water.
So tell us a little bit about this movie, because obviously the people watching this won't have seen it because they aren't in the cinema tonight. So tell us a little bit about this movie, what it's about, and where it came from, with as few spoilers as possible.
Aaron,
Sure.
I think you should speak about that because it's your dad who wrote it.
Yeah, my dad, Aidan, wrote the script for Pareidolia. Pareidolia is a short film that follows a young university lecturer who's studying shapes and patterns and things that aren't really there, sort of like psychology. And she urges her class to go out and take photos of examples of a thing called pareidolia, a phenomenon called pareidolia, where if you were to look at a cloud and see a dragon or something, or a knot of wood and see a face, that's pareidolia. It's just something that our brain perceives as patterns, and our brain puts them together and goes, "Oh, it's a thing that I recognize." And the thing of our film is that she is being followed by an entity that's hiding within the pareidolia. So there is something there.
And pareidolia is a real thing because if it's in the dictionary, the word's in the dictionary, so it's not a made-up word.
Mm-hmm.
And people didn't really know what pareidolia was.
Yeah, people. I mean, yeah, it's a weird
It's
word.
I've never heard, I'll be honest with you.
When I first heard it,
experience seeing something.
Yeah.
I think the word the para at the beginning kind of makes you think like it's paranormal or something like that. But
Or a parrot.
or parrot, yeah, that's our next film, Parrot.
It's like Father Ted when he sees Jesus in school.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And what really, I know you said your dad wrote it, but what made you want to bring this to life and to get it out there for people to see?
Well, Stuart approached me about doing a project with Diane Franklin. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about.
So I've known Diane now for 11, 12 years. We're very good friends, and she came over when I had my little Misty Moon gallery in South East London years ago. And we did a retrospective of 5 of her films over 5 nights, and we kept in touch. And she was going to come over and do some gigs with us because I also do events. And I said, I'd love to do a short film with you because I've done quite a few. And she said, well, I never do shorts. That's the first thing. But if it's with you and Jen, I'll do it as long as the script is good. And the other thing she said is, I never do zombies. So I spoke to my wife, the lovely Mrs. Moon, and I said, look, got a good idea. We need to find a new director because I've worked with quite a few. She said, do you remember this young, talented director who did a film called The Understudy that won at our film festival a couple of years ago, the Douglas Sutton Award? And I said, well, yeah. And she said, well, give him a call. So I called him and I said, Aaron, it's Stuart here, would you like to do this film or come up with a script? And 10 minutes after he got off the floor, because he went, it was Diane Franklin, he said, yeah, okay. And I said, it's got to be simple. There's not going to be a lot of budget. And he said, leave it with me. I'll come up with something. And then we've got this huge thing, because it is. We've got 5 main cast members in it. It's got a mortuary in it. It's got a 500-year-old cottage. It's got a ghost. And what we've seen is perfect, really. And what a cast.
Yeah,
what a cast list.
So a little bit about that. How did you come on to this?
It's always a fantastic thing in my industry because I've known Stuart probably 30 years.
20.
Okay, I forget how old you are. Young you are.
Yeah.
I met him when I pushed out my autobiography. I think, in 2009, something like that.
Yeah.
And we had some mutual mates. Aaron I knew through the Rob Knox Film Festival. And but my goodness, that was a while ago. I mean, you were like 12 or something.
I'm still 12 apparently.
Well, mind you, you get to everyone looks 12. So it was a longevity. The thing about it is, as Diane or any actor worth their salts will tell you, it's about the words.
Yeah.
As soon as you pick the thing up, if it gets into you, first time read, you'll do it.
And what was it about the first time read that, obviously the words, but what was it about the story and the words that made you think, I'm doing this?
A lot of people don't realize that the fun part of acting is finding the character, getting inside the writer's head. So where's he taking us? Where's he want to go? Where's he want to go with this? Where are the little loopholes? Where's the idea that we can send the audience in this direction, but we're going to take them over there in the end? There's all that stuff when you read it, and it had that in spades from the very, very beginning. And it's a nice short, so you can probably slot it in, as long as the guys are okay. You can probably slot it in pretty easily with real work. I mean, where you can go and eat, feed the family afterwards and all that sort of stuff. But then it's a question of personalities. Do I want to work with these people? And we won't mention the names, but we mentioned a few people already tonight when you come down. And you also get it in my industry. You'll hear that just a pain in the bum. Why any actor would get that creation around them, because that just means they're not going to. We're there. These guys, known from the bill, we had 300 behind us, making sure it was ready for me to walk out and deliver my lines, or chase, or nick, or whatever the hell I was doing at that moment in time. Never forget that as an actor. That there's all those people around there just to make that as easy as they can for you. You're going to sit around for hours, but that's your job.
So does that make a project like this way more collaborative? And how collaborative was the process with you guys on this?
The thing you've got for yourself, I'm just thinking as an actor, the fastest thing you have to do, you're going to work at speed in a short. You've got to work at speed. No one's got time. And these guys would have done the preparation before you. But you're going to have to shift. And as I think happened quite often, if you give it to them and they've got it, that's fine. All we're going to do then, I think you just did like a couple of close-ups, and I think that was done, and we were
I think so. Yeah, but most of your time on the film was spent with Joe Akers. So you pretty much, if you weren't with Joe or Stuart, it was just you. But how was the collaborative? Sorry, I'm jumping in now. I'm going to ask some questions now. I was just curious to know what it was like working with Joe going in, because when I prepped Joe, I said Graham Cole, he's a big personality, he's got this big booming voice. I don't want you to undercut him or underplay him or anything like that, but you've got to play to the areas that Graham's not going to go to. And what I really want you to do is try and cut him up in some places, because Cavanagh, I always saw, is a broken man, but we didn't want to put that across too much in a short space of time, because what's the point?
Fun of it, isn't it?
Yeah, in our heads we get to go, oh, this has happened, or this is going to happen. But for the audience who are watching it, I mean, it doesn't matter, but it helps you and me get into the headspace.
Of course, you have to trust your director and your producer about the casting. If you guys get that right, the rest of it falls into place. If that is wrong, it's going to be hell on legs for everybody. I mean,
and you will let them know.
Well, the whole point about that is, it doesn't matter. I work a lot on stage. That shows the audience knows whether you gel or not. You haven't got it's not rocket science, and it's the same when we're on set. If you've got someone that's a little bit abrasive or whatever, I think one of the hardest things, and I'm going to be hated for saying, is what's my motivation? That's your job.
Oh, I hate you now. You said that. You said that.
That's your job. When you pick the script up, you should have done all of that before you hit the floor. And then my job then is to marry what I think Cavanagh is and what he's going to do to what the director wants. And that's the fun part of it. It's his story. That's the other thing actors got. I've got to get inside his head. Where's he want to go?
Well, we did have chats beforehand, didn't we?
Yeah,
we had a few Zooms and things like that, just going over it and picking.
We read it a couple of times, didn't we?
Just sat down, just went over it, and just tried to figure out who this character was that Dad had created and how best to put it out there.
Yeah.
But I think once we said action and everything was a go, Graham was the first person we shot with, and it was at your cottage in Robertsbridge with, I don't know how many extras there were on the day.
Village.
The whole village of Robertsbridge.
They were sang carols, didn't they?
Yeah, it was a cold night. It was really late. We were praying it wasn't going to rain, and we just shot Graham out of a cannon. Like, not really, but you know what I mean? Like, we went straight with Graham, and that determined all the footage, all the rushes that we shot with Graham on the first day determined how the rest of the film was going to look. And that was the exciting thing, because we hadn't even brought Diane Franklin into it yet. So any pace or tone that Graham put in there, we had to continue that on. Yeah.
I think then the sad thing for these guys, and because we have discussions afterwards, is what they have to cut out sometimes.
Yeah.
And a lot of the audience don't realise, and a lot of the actors always take it as angst. But these guys don't want to lose 10 minutes of their life either. And that's really painful. Yeah, it's really, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
The
painful,
film was 30 minutes long. And
Well, I was pushing 20, I think. I think it was 30.
30 minutes short.
Oh.
You stripped it down to 9 minutes and showed me the 30.
This is why, as an actor, you never get involved in the politics.
This is true.
Yeah.
You showed me 30 minutes, and then
know.
you took it to 9 and went, "Cracky, we can't just add that." And you said, "No, this is what we do," because his job really is an editor.
Yeah.
And that's what he's really good at. And so
Yeah,
he took
really
it to
good,
9
really,
minutes,
really
and he said, "This is what we do. We then start throwing bits back into it to make it work." And that's where it's come
Yeah.
up with the 14, 15 minutes of.
But presumably that's the festivals that put that kind of restraint on, or a lot of occasions.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to put into a festival, you're going to want as short as possible because they want to program as many short films as they can. If your film is 20 minutes long or whatever, they're not going to want to touch you with a barge pole. But Jake West was a huge help in terms of the editing process because he was saying to me, strip it down to its nuts and bolts, strip it down as much as you can, and then start reintroducing stuff that you miss. And if you don't miss it, then, you know, mission successful, you know?
Is that a normal process in editing? Because I don't think I've ever really.
Everyone has it depends on what works for everyone else. When I come to editing, I tend to lay everything out, like flesh it out, over put things in there, you know, and then when it comes to stripping it back, it's almost like you're cutting the fat off the steak, you know. And I just find it a lot easier to go, if we can cut to this part a lot quicker, by minute 2 we need to be here, by minute 7 we need to be here, and we need to be bowing out at 11 or something like that. But I'm a very I can be quite harsh when it comes to editing because I watch it from the perspective of someone who's going to be watching it in the cinema. And if I get bored really easily, I'm going to be like, yeah, I'd rather make the cut now than get to Romford and then just sit there going, oh, can we just skip to the next bit because I left it in there and I wish I didn't. But I don't think Pareidolia has any of those moments. I don't think there's a single.
The biggest thing we've got from every time that we've shown, I haven't been to as many showings as these guys have, is just the audience coming afterwards saying, well, what happens? You know, what's next? You know,
You tell me.
I mean, if a short can do that, then that's achieved everything that you could ever possibly wish it to be. And a wonderful response from in there tonight. I quite like the opening gambit as Father Cavanagh came walking down the corridor. These 3 lads in front. That's Tony Stamp from the film. And you
I thought you said that.
So the best of it is, I was walking through the cinema before, and you guys were on the way in. And when you walked past me, I was like, "It's Tony Stamp."
Yeah, I saw your look.
And I didn't know, like, because obviously
bless you.
I'm helping out with the festival, and I'm sort of like I'm part of the selections and everything. So I didn't know if I like grab you and be like, "Oh, Tony." But I know that's not your real name, but to me,
But again, you see that again is the strength of the character. If you say yes to it, I knew nobody when they watched Pareidolia would think about Tony Stamp.
Yeah.
They might initially at the beginning.
We had that
But
in
after
mind,
that-
I think, when we were writing, when Dad was writing Pareidolia, but especially when we were like on set and stuff, I wanted to get as far away from Tony Stamp as possible because Tony Stamp, to me, when I think of the bill and Tony Stamp, I always think of someone in a strong authoritarian figure and someone you don't mess around with and quite friendly and bubbly too. Whereas I wanted to show someone who was a drinker, someone who wasn't able to handle his own emotions, someone who was quite broken and shouting at morticians and pushing over police officers. You know, it's a very different character we
And
see.
he gave me 7 minutes to create that.
Yeah. Otherwise, yeah, that was it.
But it's a lovely piece, and working with the guys was on set was beautiful, wasn't it? I mean, it's very smooth.
Yeah.
No one shouted at each other. It was pretty tense on occasions. It's, you know, because you are up against the time.
and it's also quite a serious, quite a personal sort of story as well. So like, when you are in those sort of tense situations when you're on set, how do you break that down, both as a director, to sort of like keep everyone like on side and off, you know, like how do you break that tension?
Working with Stuart, there is a way that Stuart handles everyone on set, which I really appreciate, and Graham too, actually. So when we had a scene where we had lots of extras, Graham would be singing to the crowds because it was cold, it was late, and you know, people had come out in their coats and slippers and whatever to stand and watch these scenes unfold. And then Stuart would be making sure that we had cups of tea, that we were all fed, that we were just genuinely in good spirits. But if you genuinely enjoy the job that you're doing, you're not really going to be. I mean, there was never really any disagreements. If Stuart had an idea for a shot, which you had a few, and we tried to get them in before the time was up. Like, let's just go back and do this if we can. But everyone loved working
Plus
on
a
it.
great DOP. I mean, come on.
James Dean, our DOP, is
Oh, man.
just.
It's a very sexy film.
It was,
on
oh,
screen.
I'll let him know, James. Just by the way,
Yes,
it's a
it was
sexy
incredible.
film. He said it. It's a sexy film.
Visually sexy. Yeah.
He's in a visually sexy film.
He's-
I mean,
he's
Yeah,
put that
amazing.
on your poster at all.
visually sexy. There we go.
Absolutely amazing.
And the soundtrack's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, the sound.
Is the soundtrack sexy? Because
I've never got bored with watching
It's
it.
it's cute.
It's cute.
Yeah.
It's cute.
I like to come up with different things.
Okay.
But with that, sitting in the cinema tonight, any creative, any filmmaker, any actor can tell me everything that's wrong with it. 100 million things wrong up on that screen. But I like to ask, what did you see tonight, specifically tonight, that you were like, that looks amazing. We nailed that. I'm so proud of that.
My Cottage, I think. I do think it is the start because it's 500 years old. You hear the sound of the creaking going up and down the stairs. Everyone thinks that's been put on, but I hear that every night. Someone
A little bit of subtle lighting.
Yeah,
down,
no,
going
no,
up down the stairs.
Yeah, we left some of the crew at his house. They're just
Well, you haven't told
yeah.
me.
Under the floorboards.
But
Yeah.
I think everything about it, the colour palette, just works. It's this green,
It's
moody
lovely.
colour. And we've got an old mill just down the lane from us, which we weren't going to use in it, but you came down on a
We went for a
saw it,
walk. Yeah.
and it just all looks really fantastic. The whole village looks great.
There was a moment when we were watching it, and I was sitting with my graphics designer Nacho, and he did all the posters for the film. And he's come along, and there's that moment that happens in the film that I always either look at to Stuart for or to whoever I'm sitting next to see their reaction, and it's the big boom moment with Diane in bed with the torch.
Yeah.
And literally, I just got a raised fist, just like a little fist bump, and it was just like, that's a. There was, it's a late night screening, so there's a few people who've had a few drinks and whatever this evening. But as soon as that moment happened, the entire room was silent.
Yeah.
And I love that because it's like, right, we grabbed you by the balls, we've got your attention. Now watch this story. I love that.
That's great. That's awesome.
It's very good. Watching the heads go.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
me that's why we all sit at the back.
yeah. That's
And
it.
Even the biggest butchest guys. And if you can create that on that screen, then that's the job. That's
Exactly.
the job done.
Awesome. Do you guys intend working with each other again? Is everybody going to get the band back together for something else?
We're going to do a Bill spin-off called Stampers, and it's going to start Stampers.
Tell you what.
And it's Graham Cole at home with his wife Diane Franklin, and she doesn't want him to go back into the force. But then Dawn Perlman says, "No, he has to. He's got to clean up." No, I don't know.
I'll tell you
Yeah.
what, you created something special because Stamp was terrible around women. He never got anything. Never got women in the whole of his life, mate. Never got close.
We tried to.
Then, well, he kissed Ackland a couple of times.
We did.
Yeah, it's just
Polly Page.
it's just going to be Tony Stamp trying to kiss people.
No,
I think there's an opening. You won't remember, but Alfred Burke played a wonderful called what the hell was that? It was such a clever idea. He's an old detective that just sets up his own agency, and that's what you hear. Well, what are these guys doing? Obviously, I meet thousands
It's all new tricks.
of old coppers. That come up to me.
Oh,
Well, no, it's way before that.
Yeah.
I wish I hadn't started the story now, so I can't remember what it was called. But you have to go and look up Alfred Burke, and then you'll think, oh yeah. Okay. And it's that kind of thing. I mean, we've tried a few times. Mark, Trudy, and I have tried to go back and do these cold callings, but TV execs don't want to know. So there's nothing we can do about
they're
it.
wrong.
You know.
They are
And,
They're
and the other
wrong.
thing is, from my point of view, I have to be asked.
And you
Yeah.
can't make
That's the thing
deals.
about actors. These guys are out there doing all sorts of other stuff. Whether they want me in it or not, it's down to them.
Well, I'm
And that's
working on
kind
a
of-
film called Chuck that we were going to do before lockdown, and I'm recasting it now. And it's about Charles Manson before everyone knew him as Charles Manson. So it's slightly based on fact with a bit of dramatization thrown in. So he was in and out of different institutions when he was about 18, 19. And this particular institution he was in, and the guy that ran it was doing illegal lobotomies. And our story goes that did he do this lobotomy on Charles Manson that made Chuck into Charles Manson? And we'd cast Graham as O'Neill, but I've recast to
Lovely,
Graham's
caring
still in it.
person.
And we've got Diane Franklin's now in it playing Sister Hackett, so she's coming back. And it was the first time we've actually worked in person with Diane. And we've got Gary Webster from Minder who took over from Dennis Waterman. He's going to now play the Doctor, and I've still got a couple of more castings for it. We're looking at shooting that next
Great
year.
little story, though. Great story.
And that is, it's really,
Like the concept.
where this is great and it's spooky, this is horrid, really. It really is a disturbing
That stuff always. I
story.
remember doing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in the round
Right.
in theatre, and it was the most. By the end, you had the audience actually almost ready for a straitjacket. It was
And
extraordinary.
this is like
extraordinary, because you get say
Yeah,
theatre. That's what it's about. But it's about the actors. It's about the writing. It's about that moment of sharing, and that's what you get, isn't it? When we sat in there, you know, you're all in that moment, all trying to butch it out, and you all jump. It's just great.
It's the way it should be. It's the way it should be. What do you prefer doing? Treading the boards or being on the big screen?
Well, obviously, TV and film is so utterly different from each other. But I love that because I like the money. But theatre, irrespective of what my producer or my director or anybody else cares about, once they're off, the piece is mine. So if there was something that I particularly loved, plus I just love that fact. I love the psychology of audiences.
Yeah.
I love the fact that everyone you play to is different. And there's people different. And, you know, I've been there for 50 years. 50 years this year. This man's doing a little special for my 50 years, bless him. You know, and in that time, the things that I've loved the most is just manipulating audiences, just looking at them, seeing when they come in. You can't take away the problems, then they're going to go back to those problems. But my job is for 2 hours, forget them.
Yeah.
Let's do this together, you know, and that's the fun of theatre. But I mean, TV and film's the same, but we don't get to see it.
Yeah. I suppose once your job's done, and then they've got to go off and create the rest of the magic, I guess. Is there any scope to maybe embellish on this?
Excuse me, sorry.
Ideas to maybe blow this up a little bit?
Yeah, the idea is that, you know, whilst we have other projects that we're working on at the moment, I will be working on the screenplay for the. Do you mind? I think that's incredibly rude. While I'm trying to, you'll never know the truth now. Ladies and gentlemen, since we started this interview, Graham Cole has now left us, but we will always remember him as Father Cavanagh and maybe Tony Stamp. Yeah, answer your question. There is a script that's being worked at the moment. Don't want to divulge too much information about it, but at the moment, because we're still in the whole circuit of doing the short film and promoting that, but things are happening. It's just, you know, we have a lot on between Stuart and I. We've got a lot on, so we want to make it work and we want to see it happen. But yeah, as Stuart always says, this is like a calling card. So, but who knows?
It's a hell of a calling card, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. That's nice.
You guys have created a wonderful little show there, even though I can't pronounce the name.
With sexy visuals.
That's because I'm from the north, so that's my fault.
Well, I think it's fantastic, and Aaron picked this up on Wednesday, is that we've got the guy from The Bill and the Candyman, Tony Todd, both up for Best Actor. Yeah. And that's just a bit surreal.
It's got to go with Tony, though.
I think so.
Not Tony Todd, Tony
Stamp.
Yeah, the two fighting together.
We should have built it that way as well.
Yeah, the two.
Rage in a Cage, Hell in a Cell. I'd like to see that. Yeah, no disqualification.
One's got a trunk and the other one's got a hook.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thrilling Sunhill, something like that.
A Thrilling Sunhill. I like that. If we can make that happen, we'll let you know.
A completely different type of film.
Coffin fit.
Yeah. So you kind of mentioned before about things that people have said about the short, but what is something that has stuck with you from what people have said, what audience have said about the short?
For me personally, I was really humbled by Neil Marshall's words from the Soho London Independent Film Festival, and he was one of the judges at the festival, and he selected us for Best Horror. And he was just incredibly nice about it. And he said some lovely words that have escaped me at this moment in time. But at the time, when I heard it, I just thought, wow, the guy from... Yeah.
Didn't go anywhere else just to have that.
The guy from Dog Soldiers, The Descent, Hellboy, saying that he really enjoyed this film. And I just thought, wow, this is...
a fresh thing. That this Pareidolia is around. Everyone knows it, but no one knew what the word was.
Yeah, exactly.
No one's really done anything with it. And the fact that Dad tapped into that, and Dad's really good at that. Dad's really good with his writing in terms of tapping into everyday, sometimes even mundane things, and then flipping it on its head, and then saying to the audience, "Wouldn't it be scary if?" And that's how Dad will work. So I absolutely love him for that, and he's written an absolutely amazing script.
Yes. We're going to start wrapping up a little bit now, But first of all, when I know you're on the festival circuit now, but are people going to be able to see it out in the big wide world?
They can buy the Blu-ray.
Yeah, we are working on a Blu-ray that was originally intended for the backers of the Indiegogo campaign, but I think we're going to cast the net wider and do maybe a limited run.
Yeah.
So we'll number them or something like that, and then
Because, we do the bill reunions together. I produce those. Graham sees them, and we get different cast members in, so we can sell them at that. And every time we do a bill reunion, there's one next week with Mark Wingett and Trudy Goodwin. We show the film as well at the Cinema Museum, so it's getting out there that way. I don't, and Aaron agrees. I hope he agrees. We don't just want to shove it onto YouTube. Like most short films go. It's worth too much for that, really. I'd rather it just be put somewhere for something else than actually having it. Like,
as you say, it's kind of a calling card. It's a bit of a proof of concept, so you can't just
shove it
out
onto
there.
YouTube.
it's a really complicated thing because Lights Out did it and it worked, and Laura Hasn't Slept did it as well. So it's very delicate. But Stuart and I think we'll just decide what's the best thing to do for it when the time comes, and we'll. Yeah, and I quite like the idea of having a physical copy of it as well. It's quite nice, especially if there was like only 100 and I had, number 70. That's kind of special. I like the idea of having I'm the guy who worked on Cottle VHS, so I quite like the physicality of something, and because the streamers can't take it away.
Diane can have it as well, so she can sell them at conventions. Sandy Johnson, of course, is the voiceover. I think for me, what I really wanted from it and what I loved about it is, because I'm an 80s child, really. So I was the cult of VHS going down the video shop to watch all these slasher films. And we have so many homages in this. We've even got Crystal Lake Wine from Adrian King. So Adrian King's the co-founder of my company, Misty Moon. So we shoved that in. We've got Sandy Johnson from Halloween, was doing the Adrian Barbeau, Stevie Wayne thing from The Fog. So there's lots of little bits and pieces in there.
I think as well, while I'm sitting amongst you young people, the biggest difference that you guys are going to have to look at, and obviously the strike in America has really brought it to a fore.
Yeah.
I never watched a film on my phone, and I never will.
No.
And I think that's something that we've really got to be careful about because it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And ITV spent, if I'm allowed to say that, fortunes trying to get everyone to watch TV shows on. Why?
Yeah.
Because, and it's a bit like you were saying, it's like all the time I'm reminded, we watched a bill, I was with my granddad, I was with my mum, I was with my brothers and sisters, and and that's what it's about, that collective love of just sitting around there and watching it all. And you guys are young enough to say, oh, let me stay up, mum, it's the bill, it's educational. Get another hour up, that's all that's about.
You're sitting there acting like you remember saying all those things.
So, but that's why we make it, isn't it? And like the thing like we're always excited about is where it's being shown in places like this. In a proper cinema with
come and see it in a proper cinema.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do worry because you're on the train and you're watching these great movies.
Everybody's
watching on the phone.
Well, I do because I have a long train journey. But I'm watching The Omen at the moment just to see Dawn Perlman, who is also in the film.
Well, if you didn't have such a huge estate out in the middle of stuff, what do you expect?
This is true.
Right, guys. Well, I just want to say from me and the rest of the selection committee from Romford Horror, thank you for submitting the movie.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Bless you. Bless you for the invite.
And for the most part, just thanks for being here tonight as well, because it's awesome to get to speak to you about this film. It's a fantastic show that you've made.
And if I happen to die through choking tonight, you can sell this anyway you like.
You blame Spencer.
Yeah.
And I'll do